Number 4. The Justice League. The success of Batman the Animated Series was such that it helped create the DC Animated Universe. It brought together some of DC's biggest names with Superman, Batman, The Flash, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, Hawkgirl, and making her long-awaited return to the world of animation since the Super Friends show, Wonder Woman. The show follows the events of both Superman the Animated Series and Batman Gotham Knights. An impending alien invasion is coming to Earth. Superman is warned telepathically by imprisoned Martian John Jones, who goes on to become the Martian Manhunter. Wonder Woman, against the wishes of her mother Hippolyta of Themyscira, joins in on the battle to save mankind from the impending invasion. John Stewart, Green Lantern, The Flash, and Hawkgirl join in the fray and team up to stop the invasion. Following these events, they go on to form the Justice League, and they take on various superpowered threats. Now, the thing of note here is that a number of these villains came from Superman's world as they deal with foes like Lex Luthor, Darkseid, Brainiac, and Lobo. He did have a number of Batman's foes like Poison Ivy and the Joker, but the presence of this style of villains was reflective of the kind of world that the Justice League was operating in. So that is why I guess we didn't see the likes of the Mad Hatter or Scarecrow. The Justice League did well to build up characters and story arcs, which is very much an ensemble show with all 7 members getting plenty of time to stand out. Coming into this show, not a lot was known about Hawkgirl or Green Lantern John Stewart, and the show did well to feature them quite a bit and build them up as key players in this show. It eventually leads to a relationship between the two. The Flash had made an appearance on Superman the Animated Series. He too got featured on here prominently. But the thing I was surprised about was that this was not Barry Allen, as I had been familiar with, but it was Wally West. Martian Manhunter was given time to build up his character, and in turn solidifying his importance to the team. Wonder Woman had never had her own animated show, which actually was quite incredible to think about, as she is part of the Holy Trinity of DC. This show gave her her own arcs and time to stand out from the group. Initially she's very wary of man's world, but over time grew to accept it and appreciate it. The voice cast seems to be a trademark of great successful shows from a DC animated series, and the voices on display here give great life to the show. Overall, the Justice League is a great ensemble show with great action, great voice acting, engaging stories, just an overall top show. Number 3. The X-Men. The X-Men were amongst Marvel's most successful characters within the comic books, and this show helped solidify them as a top tier act. Released on October 31st, 1992, this show was a hit, as it followed the adventures of a group of mutants who are formed and are sworn to protect the human race who fear and despise them. This show was a great advert for fighting against bigotry and intolerance. It told great stories without feeling too preachy or beliefs being shoved in your face. The show is heavily influenced by the early 1990 Jim Lee X-Men comic run, as the look of the characters is taken directly from that comic book series. The lineup consists of Cyclops, Gambit, Rogue, Storm, Jubilee, Jean Grey, Beast, Professor Charles Xavier aka Professor X, and Wolverine. A primarily ensemble cast, as there were specific episodes dedicated to a single character giving them their own personal story arcs. As well as dealing with the hatred of humanity towards them, the X-Men also had to deal with various villains with superpowers. You had Mr. Sinister, who had a fascination with Cyclops and Jean Grey as he wanted their DNA to help him build an army of superpowered mutants. There was Sabretooth, Wolverine's arch nemesis. There was the Friends of Humanity led by Graydon Creed, the son of Sabretooth, the first and most powerful mutant on Earth who proved to be one of their most formidable enemies, which culminated in a 4-part story Beyond Good and Evil, The Mighty Apocalypse. There was also Magneto, Professor X's best friend turned enemy, who were on opposing sides when it came to dealing with humanity. The show did extremely well to adapt comic book story arcs like Days of Future Past, in which there is an assassination attempt on Senator Kelly, with Gambit being their prime suspect, and in actuality, it is another X-Men foe in the form of Mystique. The Phoenix and Dark Phoenix sagas, which saw Jean become one with the entity known as the Phoenix in order to stop the threat of Terrant Decken from the Shi'ar Empire. This later leads to the Phoenix itself becoming corrupted and turning evil in the process. The sagas are brilliantly adapted from the comics and set a standard of a faithful adaptation, unlike the movies. Like all Marvel shows, there are appearances from other Marvel alum. In its prime, X-Men garnered very high ratings for a Saturday morning cartoon show, reaching approximately 23 million households. Haim Saban credits the success of this series in assisting him to sell his next future project to Fox, a little show you might have heard of called Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Nope, never heard of it. There can be no doubting the success of this show, as it led to future Fox movies and all of the animated adaptations. To this day, it is still considered the best X-Men animated series. And with the follow-up series X-Men 97 in the works, time will tell if this still follows the spirit of this show. X-Men the Animated Series, a certified classic animated superhero show. Number 2, Justice League Unlimited. Now technically I could have put this and Justice League together, but in essence they are two separate shows. Justice League focused on the core 7 founding members. This show looks at the wider DC universe and features other various DC superheroes. Now I had a little gripe with this one, as it meant we saw less of the original lineup, and I would have personally preferred a separate show that focused on the original lineup and could cross over with this show from time to time. But my personal wishes aside, this show took what was established with the Justice League and took it even further. The stories were a lot more mature, and this led to semi-adult themes like sexy innuendos and more animated violence than previously seen in the last iteration of Justice League. As stated earlier, the wider DC universe was looked at here, and we saw characters like Supergirl, Captain Atom, Shazam, and Green Arrow take center stage. This actually got me more interested in them as a whole, and I would look forward to their own personal story arcs on this show. Supergirl in particular had a very interesting story, with her being the subject of a nefarious plan known as Project Cadmus, which saw her get cloned as part of a plan to frame and destroy the Justice League. In keeping with the theme of Superman villains used primarily over Batman villains in this universe, Lex Luthor is at his most diabolical best, being the mastermind behind Project Cadmus, fusing with another Superman villain in Brainiac in a very shocking sequence. Lex Luthor also managed to grab the one power that another Superman alum Darkseid craved, the anti-life equation. Lex was simply all over this series run. The dark and edgy side of Superman was exposed due to Lex's scheming, with Supes almost coming off as a low-key villain at times with his over-effusive approach to dealing with their enemies. Now, Justice League Unlimited came about, according to producer Bruce Timm, due to the network ordering 2 more seasons of Justice League, except they wanted it rebranded and in the old school format of a singular 30-minute episode. The 3-part story star-crossed from Justice League was supposed to be the final run of Justice League as a whole. Now this was an ensemble show like Justice League, but on an even bigger scale due to the large cast of characters. A number of characters got featured multiple times, and they had their own story arcs in addition to the ones that featured the original cast. The action sequences are turned up by 10, the storylines are a lot more engaging, and as always the voice acting is superb. If I had any criticisms of this show, it would be A. It ended way too soon and could have gotten at least 1 more season, and B. The OG cast didn't feature as much. They only appeared together as a whole team just a small handful of times. Now that aside, it was good to see all the other characters and enjoy the stories that they were part of. Justice League Unlimited is an excellent successor to Justice League, and it is one of the very best superhero animated shows ever. Number 1. Batman the Animated Series. Given this show's influence on some of the other shows on this list, it would have been absolutely criminal if I didn't include it on this list. But here it is, and it's number 1 with a bullet. It was an absolute groundbreaking show. There had not been any animated shows quite like it before its release. The series was seen as a primetime show as opposed to a kids animated series. Given the rather mature themes and dark tones, this was simply not a villain of the week, I'm going to destroy Batman and rule Gotham City. Nope. There was a lot of psychological aspects to the villains. Two-Face, for example, is District Attorney Harvey Dent, who is the victim of a dual personality which is gradually taking over. Harvey is accidentally caught during an explosion, which leaves him permanently scarred, and his evil persona takes over fully, leaving him as the villain Two-Face permanently. This was one example of the psychological build-up of a character and the impact it had on the show. Batman the Animated Series ran for 109 episodes over 3 seasons. It later was retitled The Adventures of Batman, with Robin featuring more prominently. The Batman's greatest adversary, the Joker, is one of the best things about this show. The constant battle between the two, Batman's refusal to kill him as it goes against his code of ethics. The chemistry is very much embodied by the voice portrayals of both Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, whom are the definitive Batman and Joker in the eyes of all Batman fans. The show was at times slow and methodically paced, and Batman would get beaten up quite easily at times, another source of frustration for me. I mean, he goes on later to join the Justice League and he takes on superpowered villains, and in this build he gets beaten up by dangerous villains who have no superpowers. I just found that quite jarring at times. That aside, there can be no question about what a great show this is. The artwork, the symphony score, the drama, the action, the world-class voice acting. Simply put, without the show's success, the rest of the DC animated universe does not exist. An all-time superhero classic, an all-time great animated show, and an all-time great TV show. Batman the Animated Series. And that right there was my top 10 list of superhero animated shows. And of course this was mainly Marvel and DC characters, and there are other animated shows characters out there like Spawn, but these are the shows that I've grown up with, and a lot of them were from a preteen to an adult. But I think we can all agree that a lot of the shows on this list are top tier, highlighted by the fact that currently there are no animated shows from either DC or Marvel that are quite producing shows of this quality. What if? Okay, but I don't think it's as good as these. The quality writing, excellent comic book adaptations, the voice acting and all the action make all of these shows amazing and top class. And with that all said, I am K-Man of Smugface Entertainment, and that was my top 10 list of superhero animated shows. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you liked it, and if you want to see more, please remember to like, share and subscribe. Thank you.